Ndumiso Sibanda is a Zimbabwean-born South African filmmaker, director, and photographer. He has directed some of South Africa's most loved TV shows, series, and commercials. As the owner of Jahunda Media and the director of 7 films, Sibanda is an experienced filmmaker who has shot over 50 countries around the world. Ndumiso, we are so pleased to have you. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy.
When I was researching your work, 2 names popped up, Omawale and Nyikanyi. Can you tell me more about those names?
So the first one, Omawale, I received in my travels. I've been very blessed to be able to travel and work traveling on someone else's dime, and it's been very enriching. But one of the great times I was in Nigeria, and there's an artist named Madame Nike. Madame Nike has an art gallery. She's world-renowned. She's amazing. She's just amazing. And we were having a conversation, and I was shooting, and I was interviewing her, and she just assumed I was Nigerian. And in the end of it, she asked, "Where are you from?" And when I told her where I was from, she was like, "No." And the name Omowale means the sun has come home.
Oh,
so
wow.
She gave me that name there, and I think it's nice. I was young enough to feel like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this name and just add it to my, just add it to my bag, just add it to my encounters, you know.
That's lovely. The sun who has come home. And is this Madame Nike from Nike Gallery in Nigeria?
Yeah, that's
oh my goodness. Wow, that's amazing. I've also researched her, and incredible, incredible woman. I watched your short film entitled Spirit of My Work. You said in the very beginning, if Africa does not tell its own stories, Africa will soon disappear. This is very powerful. Can you tell me a little bit more about that statement?
Definitely. So those are not my words exactly. Those are borrowed words from, you know, the legendary filmmaker Usman Sembeni. And effectively, we are responsible for our stories. We're responsible for our stories. We're responsible to every single inch of our history. So if Africa does not tell its own stories, Africa will soon disappear. We don't serve our own interests narratively sometimes. So quite often, I guess the image and the Black African image can be really done with as what and whoever wants to do with it. So when I say those things, I just mean, you know, I'm in a position where I'm the custodian of the realities of our stories. And if people like me and all of us collectively don't do anything about them, Africa will no longer exist. And that's borrowed from Usman Sembeni, because I think he believed at the time that, you know, when he was telling stories, he knew why he had to. He was maybe considered the first. We don't have time to be called the first to do things. You know what I mean? We are the collective doers, and it has to be an ocean, like in the same way as a single wave is what the whole ocean is doing.
Yes.
That's how we need to be propelling our narratives together by force, which brings me to Inkani, the other word.
Okay.
Inkani is just that. It's an adamance. I use the words contenting Inkani. Inkani, it's like, it's you know, it can be many things. It can be brazen, it can be being stubborn. I'm talking about how we got to do this because like we have to.
Yes, definitely.
We have to do it.
That was very beautifully said. And I guess it moves forward into the next question that I have for you. There is a growing presence of African movies on Netflix and other streaming channels. The internet also has shrunk the world in a sense, but the collaboration also in, for instance, Beyonce's film, what is it, Goddess King? I forgot the title, yes. But that recent collaboration and connection of Africans globally. Do you think this broadening of an audience has changed our responsibility as African storytellers?
Do I think the broadening of, repeat that last part again? I just want to encapsulate it really well.
Sure. Do you think that this broadening of audience and connection that we've had
Mhm.
has changed our responsibility as African storytellers? Like, what stories now are we specifically able to tell
Oh,
now that the
okay.
world is listening?
Now that the world is listening, I think, you know, there are different types of people in the world. There are people who
Mm-hmm.
need signals to react. There are people who just do, and there are people who require quite a lot of momentum before they're able to do things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what Beyonce has done is that she's, well, let me not just say Beyonce, but let me say the way she did it was tasteful by including so many people,
Mm-hmm.
and the narratives that were included in that. Like, I mean, one of the guys, Warren Masemola, he is a South African star, able to play the villain, able to play the father, able. So when we see him in these roles, it's paying homage to our love for him. So what that does is there's a collective resonance and
Mm-hmm.
agreement that, yo, man, she's dope in my language too. My language is dope as well. Um, and I think the last part of what you said was has it changed? Has it changed our? You said, has it changed our?
Oh, I was saying, has it changed our narratives and storytelling abilities? So,
So
yeah.
yes, it's there's now a lot more to reference in an easier way.
Mm,
Sometimes it's difficult. So again, remember I was saying there are different types of people in the world.
yes.
Some people, it's harder for them to unhinge their jaws and say what they need to say. Seeing how it was put together, or seeing how many different things are put together now because of the internet and our access to it, people's jaws are unhinged right now. They're able
Mm,
to do their things. I'm so annoyed sometimes by these constant Wix adverts, just different guys, Wix. But I started to realize that I wasn't realizing that a lot of friends of mine were now becoming empowered to making their own websites, from a
mm,
perspective that, one day I know I am this type of person, but really I really want to be saying this thing. And then here I watched Black is King last night. You know what? I really want to start my I really want to start my painting journey, but I only want to use chalk or whatever it may be. But now you're finding ways to market yourself and talk about yourself. It's made us, it's made us broader, as it's made us, it's nice to be inspired by other Black people.
yeah.
We've always found inspiration in Hollywood, and it's nice to see other Black people doing it from a perspective that, when I say Hollywood, I mean metaphorically speaking, of that image and that old guard.
Mm,
These are within our reach now. I think that's
yes.
what I'm trying to say. They're within our reach.
Thank you. And what do you feel is your responsibility as an African artist, as a Zimbabwean South African artist? What is
Mm,
your responsibility as a
mm,
storyteller?
mm. So my responsibility as a storyteller is to refuse untruths first and foremost.
Refuse untruths.
Yeah, refuse untruths first and foremost. I have to refuse untruths, and then I can have fun after that, because then I know that my bedrock is not BS. You know what I mean? So I would say my responsibility is really to make sure, I guess it's different in different places. In the space I'm currently in, it's to make sure that um, um, non-South Africans have a voice in the content we make, especially.
Mm,
and and I know that in a way subtly combats, I guess, the the disease that is xenophobia. And I use the word disease. It's funny. I wasn't expecting to use the word disease, but I did use the word disease. Yeah, but
why
I'd
do you,
pack that as.
why do you
But
think that popped up first, saying that it's a disease?
because I I see in conversations how infectious it is. how people get riled up, especially on Twitter. I'm systematically shutting down a lot of my social medias because of how, xenophobia spreads. I see
Mm.
how at some point, um, uh, you'll suddenly see a hashtag like hashtag foreigners must go.
Mm.
And now you're reading all sorts of bullshit that's kind of like weaving into this thing from, I saw a meme, even there's like this Zimbabwean actress who kills it on local TV, okay?
Mm.
And she's funny and she's loved, right? And everyone generally loves her. They generally all love her. They all love her. Everyone loves her, no matter what tribe, what culture, your background is. If you're catching a show, you love her. Um, and at this point, when this hashtag was going around, someone was saying, you see, even their celebrities are famous here. And I thought to myself, this is where it becomes like a disease, where it becomes just like, shit, man, what, someone coughed, you caught it too, and you had to say something. So I see it like that. But I don't know, maybe I'm just also looking at it differently. I mean, I've got a tattoo,
Yeah.
as a bird on my wrist, and I got it because I think I'm very proud. I'm very proud. And there's also that part inside me that yearns to be closer to home and to
Yes.
live and work at home. And maybe this comes right back to my responsibility again, and saying that my responsibility is to remain sharp, because the stories that I really need to tell are waiting for me back home. And the bedrock of my foundation, where I say I need to refuse the untruths, I really also need, when I go back there, I need to have the attitudes that says, I'm going to tell these stories no matter what. I mean, there are bills being proposed of an accepted histories thing that looks to deny certain histories. And so anyway, a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we have time. And I loved it all. Speaking of where you're from in Zimbabwe, what was your family background like? How did you end up in South Africa, and what was it like as a Zimbabwean growing up in South Africa?
It's so funny. My background, I can remember my earliest memories are in this place called Gwanda.
Rwanda.
Gwanda is where the house of Jahunda is. It's where I was born.
Mm.
My grandfather had chickens in the back, and my grandmother had a lot of kids. And it was just, my mother was 21 and I was born. And 2 years later, they were in Cape Town finishing off their studies. Now, with, I think they were doing their honors at UCT. They brought me along as well. So I kind of grew up as, like these young 22, 21-year-old, 22-year-old parents at UCT. I went to this UCT crash. So I was very much a child of popcorn. You know how like a movie is, I was a child that grew up in the shadow of my parents' journey, and I got to live their journey. So it wasn't a single base I grew up with. I yearn for the single base now that I'm growing older, but we moved a lot. And growing up with these parents who at some point, when you're 21, the whole world is marketing towards you. You and I, our age, I guess the world is no longer marketing towards us. We are not gonna somehow change the trajectory of thinking based on our interests. No, these are the millennials, these are the 21-year-olds, or rather the Gen Zers, sorry. These are the Gen Zers, the 21-year-olds, the really young kids right now. That's who everyone is marketing to. But then obviously under the carpet, I mean, we're all being marketed to. But
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I've deviated from the original question so much.
That's fine. That's fine. I was just asking about your background, but you did very beautifully describe it. But continue.
That's so to sum it all up, my background is growing up in South Africa. Everything we did at home, the food I ate, the conversations we had, we were Zimbabwean. When we left went outside the door, we went to Africa.
Mm,
There was I've never used the word dichotomy. Is this the right time? There's a dual world. There's a
yeah.
dual world that takes place where um, the subcultures I love are of two worlds, because the music I listen to in the back, it's lovely. It's
Mm.
really lovely. Yeah, that's Ndumiso. That's how I ended up being here, growing up, and we are still here, and we go back often. I did go back often. We grew up going back often with the yearning that, one day, yeah.
Thank you. So often as an African child, there's usually a message that you need to have a profession that is either, a doctor or a lawyer, but very rarely about being an artist. So I wanted to know what your support was like growing up with your knowledge that you wanted to pursue a career in the arts.
Mm. You know, my background feeds into this because I'm the child of those kids who were going through UCT, and they studied psychology. They studied psychology. My father is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man in the kitchen, and he
Mm,
makes his own spices. So I was also a child of restaurants.
okay.
So growing up, seeing his creativity, Nina Simone once came into his restaurant. You know what I mean? So growing up and being around his creativity, and my mother's also a writer. She's creative. I did not, well, maybe I had the burden of legitimizing my artistry with a degree. That's as far as it got. Not to say that I'm expected to be a doctor, but if I'm an artist, I'm expected to be an artist with a qualification. Maybe that's where I think the weight of it is that knowledge. My parents do believe in knowledge having a certificate, but I really grew up in a world that did not put that pressure on me. Shame. I didn't.
That's so wonderful. And that's the same for me. My parents said that if you want to pursue a career in the arts, you have to get the education. You have to
Mm,
get the certification to be able to be the best in that field.
mm,
So I can relate to that. And I feel like it's beautiful that you had that upbringing because a lot of people don't. So
yeah.
that's really powerful and lovely that your parents were able to, foster your love for the creatives.
Yeah. How old were your parents when they had you?
My mother was 18.
Your mother was 18.
Yes. So,
Okay.
we, in a sense, grew up together, but also
Yeah.
everybody in my family supported my growth and our journey. So it was, I think that also plays in it that we were in an environment that she understood certain journeys, and she's an artist herself. I
Ah,
forgot to mention that. My grandfather was a journalist, but we have artists in our family. So,
lovely.
yes.
And your grandfather was a journalist. Where?
In
Which
Zimbabwe, his name is Pius Wakatama.
Pius Wakatama.
Yes,
Can I write that down? Is there like
absolutely.
literature I can find on the brother?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if you can get one of those copies. I don't know if they're still producing them, but I'm sure you'll find something. Pius
Yeah.
Wakatama, and my aunt is a very well-known editor in chief. Her name is Ella Wakatama.
Hello, Wakatama. You
Yes.
Wakatama just killing it out there,
I'm trying to live up to the name.
yeah, man. It's great. Why I'm writing this down is just it's nice just to connect dots. It's nice to
Hmm.
connect dots as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yes. What collaboration with another artist did you find the most inspiring?
What collaboration with another artist did I find the most inspiring? You know, oof, ah, there is there is something one can tap into within their own charge and creative force. And I I really love tapping into that when I do tap into it. And you only realize it when you look back and you're like, oof, man, that was a hard situation. And that's how I'm gonna answer this question. So I made a trilogy of films called, well, I made a film called, well, it became a trilogy called Love, Love, Love. Love, Love, Love was written as a release because I had been in so many long distance relationships. My life was long distance, you know, and I needed to release a part of myself that, you know, and just kind of do a poem the only way I know how to do it. So this film was based on all the voice notes we used to send, the way you know how a long distance relationship comes and goes when you get to that point where you're now just over it. And yeah, you
Yeah.
know, so the film follows those things called Love, Love, Love. It's on Vimeo. And now that that series of films, I collaborated with another lovely, 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 lovely Zimbabwean artist.
Mm.
Well, her name is Phoebe Mwanza. And Phoebe she used to own a label called The Prodigal Daughter. So she also acted in the movie and we wore her clothes, and it was we just came together. We shot the film in one day in Melbourne, in Australia. I was there for another assignment. We had one day to do it. And we had been emailing while I was in like this other place, like, yo, we're gonna arrive, boom, boom. And it was great. It was
Mm.
so good. And then to close it off, the film needed a voice. And my wife became the voice of the movie. So she added just her own part, and you can hear in the way the chemistry is and the way we're talking to each other. It's very interesting. And I think that was such a collaborative force there. And
Mm.
then, of course, Epasin Lama Budango was just, I think, important work. It's a movie where a very good friend of mine, got into her Ndebele regalia, caught a taxi, went all the way to Johannesburg, Mandela Bridge, and walked across it. Areas that are known for rape. Um, Also, at the same time, she was pointing at the fact that, you know, our we are we when we get to Joburg, we make our culture so second class, we forget who we really are. And she was shedding that down. And she also wanted to show, you know, the gram, that these systems are not really for us, because watch, they're gonna tear our pictures down. And it
Mm.
was just so much in it, but it was just such a collaboration of just dopeness. I think those two, I don't know, they've yeah, those two jump to mind.
I actually watched that film and I loved it because it shows a sense of pride, especially for women, Black women, where I think we're already ostracized and criticized. But that video was
Mm.
so powerful and prideful because she was wearing her traditional garb and just being herself, you know? And even with that, it's very intimidating for people to see. But in our true essence, that's when we're the most beautiful. And so
Mm.
that film really touched me in a powerful way. Like I really loved that film.
Ah, blessings, blessings,
Mm-hmm.
blessings, blessings. I will tell how am I for Tulufelo, the actress. She
Mm-hmm.
was amazing. She was amazing. She was a leader. That film is because she is, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the only way to see it. Um, you know, when one makes a film like that, knowing who we are right now, um, now you've obviously thought to yourself and had to unpack the male gaze.
Yes.
There is You've had to unpack the male gaze. Um, if well, maybe you did. Um, what did you think that a guy shot that?
What made me think that a guy shot that?
No, no. What did you think when you? I mean, there's so many layers to it. What did you think when? If you think, is the fact that a man shot it prevalent when you want? I mean, what? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got your question. For me, I think number one, you're a feminist, that you support women and you love women and you have a respect for women. And second, I think that if you're already having inspiration to capture this, you have a respect for us. So that's simply it. I think a love and a respect for the Black woman and for the Southern African woman in general, because you don't see that. You don't see women in their traditional dress walking down the street. Just on a regular day, not for a special occasion or a ceremony. It's a regular day, you know? And I just chose to wear my outfit.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay. I don't ask that often, if ever. I just wanted to what you saw. Because we're so learned now.
Yes.
It's nice to have this conversation on a level and just know the different levels in which this film yeah.
But before anything, I smiled. When she was being captured in the film, I smiled the entire time, just watching how people were reacting and watching how she was very much confident and just focused on what she was doing with her day and nothing else. It was wonderful. Like, the first thing that came was a smile on my face.
And that's original music as well.
Really?
Tandi Nduli, an amazing jazz musician. She made that for the film. And that, I mean, the song's amazing. Hey, the song, if you've never heard her music, you should listen to it.
I would love to. I would definitely look her up. So moving on to the next question. The world is like a blank canvas. What inspires you in general?
The world is like a blank canvas. What inspires me in general? I'm going through a really interesting time. I'm going through a really interesting time. I've realized that I may not always be the easiest person to work with. May not always be, and I just I've realized how I make my art these days, and it's so interesting. I'm gonna answer the question in a way it's gonna come back to itself, but I'm working on being nicer in a way that, because there's so many hands in the process of what we do, and I come at it in such an artistic way. I try to that it can really require you to hold the reins, so that the compromises are not compromises, but little bouts of magic that everyone gets to put, and because you allow magic, you allow the process. So I think sometimes in this pursuit of the art, in this pursuit of how we do it, now I've been doing it for about 12, 14 years, trying to get to this film thing or whatever. I don't know how long I've been doing it for. I don't know. When does one start to say I've been doing this for X, Y? I don't know. But I think right now, I love the art in this shit, and I'm really inspired by people. And I'm inspired people who do what I do in a way that allows them to have the freedom I aspire to have. So I'm very inspired by Bradford Young, for example. He's a cinematographer. He's amazing. I don't know if you've heard of him, Bradford Young.
I've heard of Bradford Young, yes.
Love Bradford Young because he applies intention based on self-motivated theory. Like, he knows what he wants. He loves these reds. He knows his collaboration with Andrew Dosanmu. They pushed each other. I love that art can get a space, and they push it. I'm really inspired by a lot of South African artists like Thandiswa Mazwai, who makes music from a place. So people inspire me in the way they live their supreme selves. I'm very inspired to unhinge my Jones. And generally as an artist, what inspires me, I think watching people. I drive often to Hillbrow. I love Yeovil, the food, get my passport stamped without leaving the country when I go to Yeovil, all the society, just watching people and then allowing that to feed into your mind. Because I'm really I I love the future and space and vibes, just science vibes. And one day I would love to take what we have around us and just give it a give it a futuristic lick and just start to define what is the future for us and about us. So I'm inspired by people to feed the future.
People to feed the future. I love that. I read about your video with the rugby ball being passed from person to person and country to country. What was the inspiration and process of that video, and when was this?
So DHL is a really interesting company, and they wanted to prove a point. They have a slogan that goes, "No one knows Africa like we do," and they want to take a car, drive all the way to the World Cup, and they wanted someone to shoot it. And we pitched to the company, and we said that we would love to film this for you, and we want to film Africa in a way that is not to shame, harm, or beg for US aid or anything. So I ended up being given this opportunity, and we left on, if I remember correctly, 2014, October the 4th, and we arrived in the UK on September the 21st, 2015. So we drove for like a year almost, and it was so dope. It was so, we passed the rugby ball. That was kind of ticking the laundry list of things, because we essentially, they're a logistics company, and they were taking a ball to the Rugby World Cup. We were also shooting the pride of the continent, little stories, photographs, little things, editing them while we're on the road. It was, it had a profound effect on me, that. And at the same time, it also defined how I would go on to work in the future,
I love that, yeah. So all of my uncles played rugby at Peterhouse, St. George's in Zimbabwe. One of them said that American football was like a sport for weak men because they wore equipment, like wore the football equipment. But I wanted to know if you played rugby, and did any of that influence the idea for the video or what you wanted to portray?
Yeah, so that was, yeah, I love rugby. The first time I played rugby I was 5 years old, and I was given at school, this school called Sachs in Cape Town, and I've been playing, I don't play anymore, but I played since I was 5 years old, and I love it. My father played, he used to play at the University of Zimbabwe. He played a little bit at UCT. He played, so there's a culture of rugby in my family, to the point where I loved rugby before I loved soccer.
And I'm sorry, I meant American football. I was referring the comparison from American football to rugby, when I had said my uncle was mentioning that it was a sport for weak men because they wear equipment.
Yes. We all grew up with that, I think people used to say that, like, yeah, in American football, they have helmets, they have this, they have that. Yeah, man, it's so interesting. Rugby. Did you grow up in a big rugby culture?
Well, I didn't, but during my childhood, when I was raised in Zimbabwe until I was 7, but all of my uncles, everybody was played rugby as a sport. So I would hear it then, but not as I got older. So very, very a younger time in my childhood, I had that experience.
Okay, I hear this.
Let's see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the thing was to say, did it influence the film? Yes. Yes, it did, because I love rugby, and I think to meet other people who loved rugby, but it will also, this is a series of 34 films. So we released a film in each country, and rugby was, I think, a motivating part of it. But if you watch the films, discovery is motivating. And I was this young kid, you know. I would do it so much differently now if I were to go back. But it was nice. It was nice to do. I I wasn't I wasn't known for shooting.
Mm,
And I shot this thing. So you're learning, and you're doing what your heart feels, you're whatever you desire to do. So there was
right.
a lot of art in that. There was a lot of in like even the way we would get our stories, we would use the gram. Like I would contact people in a country, make friends with them. We would arrive in that country and I would hang
Mm,
out with people. And you know, there is such a beautiful thing about meeting people like that, like just tagging into a situation, your
yes.
favorite. I met Malik Sidibe because of that. I
Really?
interviewed Malik Sidibe because of that. He invited me into
Uh,
his home.
oh my
And
goodness.
these are moments, you know. I photographed him. So these are moments that that rugby brought. So yeah. But I did not talk to Malik Sidibe about rugby, if you feel
That's
me.
fine, but he's a legend. I absolutely love Malik
Yeah,
Sidibe's
hey,
work. Oh my
amazing.
goodness. That's wonderful. It seems like you've met a lot of wonderful and interesting people through this journey of your storytelling. I wanted to know because I feel like it's important for us not only to learn about your journey and who you are, but how can we see your work? You also mentioned that you had over 30 films of this series of the video, but where can we, do we have access to seeing that video?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I'm so impatient, and because I'm impatient, so much of my stuff is online,
Mm,
not hidden somewhere. So the 30 videos, you can go to YouTube and type
okay.
in DHL Africa as one word.
Okay.
Well, yeah, DHL separate, Africa as one word, and it's the words, not the number. Africa as one, and hopefully it takes you. It's weird. The website no longer exists, so it should take you to a playlist of 34 films,
Okay.
and you just pick a country. Malawi, pick a country, and you watch 3 minutes. I was the voiceover person. You will know when you see these films that that's the one. I have a website as well. My website, ndumisosibanda.com. There are quite a few films there. Some of my work lives there as well.
Mm,
And Vimeo. Vimeo is where I keep my film trilogy. Love, Love, Love lives on Vimeo. Ndumiso Sibanda Vimeo. Yeah, I'm out there.
wonderful. For the young artists listening who may be from South Africa or the Southern African region, can you
Hmm.
say what has brought you to the work that you do now? And was it formal educational experience? Did you also have an experience teaching yourself? Tell me about the process of how you got where you are.
Mm. I think keep learning. Keep
Mm,
learning. I got where I am because I picked up a new skill after the skills that I had studied. And they all fed into each other. So for example, I studied, and it's great to study because studying is not necessarily about the books you read and things you learn, but it's about being around like-minded people in a constant capacity to evolve. So yes, the books are important. You forever learn things. The knowledge is important, and you keep learning and you retain it because that's a given. I don't want to go on about that, but the people that are around you and the arguments, the debates, the way you challenge yourself to be better, to compete. I'm competitive. I love to compete and to compete against people that are there. Um, that's pretty cool. But I think how I'm gonna answer this. What was I gonna say? I think. Oh man, I forgot what I was gonna say. But it all comes down to, oh yeah, that skill, that skill. So I studied directing and I studied editing. And one day on a shoot, and this is maybe a bit dodgy, but someone came through and was like, "Yo, do you want to buy a camera?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yes." And I walked to the ATM. We were shooting. I said, like, hang around. I walked to the ATM. I drew the money he wanted. Now, this is not an above the board deal. You know, I paid whatever he wanted. I got this camera and I used it every single day. And I would go and take shots. I bought lenses and I did whatever. And I used this camera and I shot photos that I liked. And 2 years later, I got an opportunity to pitch in a job and I was now shooting the whole continent. Now, I would not have had the confidence to even be in a room and say, yo, pick me, if I also did not. And at that time, it's not to say that I'm the best shooter out there. I'm just someone who loves holding a camera, you know, and I'm just someone who loves telling a story. So there is a divine spice that took place where I'm sold this camera, I buy this camera, I train myself for 2 years, I shoot and I become an enthusiast, and my framing is, and also I'm working, you know, I'm doing these things. I understand the basic rules of what I want as a director, but now suddenly I've got a metal hand, you know, and my metal hand can work for me. And if you're at home, and you know, yes, you're about to study, but it's the time you put in behind the time you have to put in that really, I think, gives you real legitimacy over your craft. And craft is really something that is constant throughout your whole life. And how you choose to take a bite out of craft is defined by your own, I guess, spirit towards that journey. And I think you won't have a spirit if you're just one who's just going to hit the books. One who's just going to hit the books, because the books are lovely and we love to have conversations where the books are guiding forces. But in the heat of the night, the passion says, do what you do best, do it, do that, do what you know, do what you've experienced, do those things, react, live, you know, make the work become all things that you don't do from a book.
Yep. I do want to talk more about the technical side of art. What type of equipment do you use? And is it expensive? Do you have to be creative in how you find equipment? I know that a lot of our listeners are either starting off or don't really have much experience to know what equipment to use. So I just wanted to know if you can share more of the technical side of what you use.
Definitely. So I've used different cameras. I've used DSLRs, and I currently use a mirrorless camera called the Panasonic GH5.
Okay.
Now, it's not a camera it's not some super high-end camera, okay? Although it's a camera that is super duper duper. It does slow motion really nicely, 180 frames per second. It does everything I need. So if I want to tell a story that requires really smooth slow motion in 4K, I can do it with this camera. I can go for, I can do the things I need to do with this camera. And I'm very creative with how I build around the camera, because as you know, a camera is not just a camera is lenses. And I don't have the budget to spend, because I buy my stuff at B&H in the States. I don't buy my stuff, so my stuff's in dollars. So I'm always trying to get good deals. So I go into like these, our equivalent, well, I won't say our equivalent, but there's bid or buy. Do you know bid or buy?
I don't know.
Bid or buy is like eBay.
Okay.
And now you go there and sometimes people are selling a whole old camera, like a Nikon camera, but you're just looking at the lens on that camera and you're like, yo, that is a real dope lens. And the whole package comes to like 500 Rand, which is what comes up to like $15, $20, $25, $30, I don't know. But at that point, you've struck gold, because that's a vintage lens that's going to give you a film look. And now you are marrying, I guess, the paintbrush and the metal hand, because a newer lens will give you a newer look, a very clean digital finish. Okay. And sometimes you want to have this like really nice, you know, lens with characteristics, and it's a beautiful 50-year-old lens. not much wear on it, and you get it at a good price, and you match it with a new camera like a GH5 like I've got. In fact, right now while you're there,
yes, please.
I'm gonna grab. So this right here is my favorite lens. It is a 50-year-old lens, and when I match it up with my GH5, this camera here, I get some of the best images because they're made from an intuitive place. I get to really, I can play with my frame rates and just like have lights doing all sorts of stuff and playing with the emotion in the film and really adding layers. And this film does that. When I traveled Africa, I used something called a Canon 5D Mark III. Now, Canon 5Ds are the shit. They are lovely. They are lovely. They're lovely because they were the first cameras that came out that put filming power in the hands of human beings and civilians and not institutions and corporations. So I used that camera. It was a tank and it was amazing. And you'll see my footage. If I look back on that footage, I would have loved to have shot that whole Africa thing on this. But that camera was special because in a moment's notice, I could switch it to stills and I could take the perfect still I needed to take in certain moments. And the job then was to blog every day, shoot video, shoot photo every day. And it was a really draining experience, but one in which for every time you were so tired, there would be a part of yourself that is like, this is amazing. Everything you're doing right now is amazing. This whole world, you're traveling, it's amazing. So you just kept going. And the gear, I trusted the gear. So always make sure you trust your gear. I trust my gear, my GH5. Back then I trusted a Canon 5D. And these are the cameras that took me over time and time again, got me where I wanted to get. As I wanna level up now, I wanna go to a cinema camera and start to make cinema documentaries so that Netflix can be like, yo, we like what you did there, what did you shoot on? Because they've got a list of cameras and you have to shoot on a specific list, otherwise your films, it's harder to get them on Netflix. I mean, Spike Lee had to have a bit of a tug of war so that he could include 16mm film in his movie, The Five Bloods, you know. Yeah.
Okay. I come from a background of fine art. Painting was my concentration. And I have to admit that I'm completely ignorant about what the role of a director does. Can you tell me more about that? My boyfriend and I had to debate about it as to what the role is, but now that you're sitting here and you're a multidisciplinary storyteller, please tell me what a director does.
So a director, to put it simply, is there to protect the vision of the story and to guide it in a very specific way. What that means is, imagine a director like Steve Jobs very much behaved like a director. He knew that he wanted a very specific product, and he knew that to get this product, he wanted certain emotions, like make it easy for people, etc., 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 and he had to guide the process to that product. So a director has a script, and every director asserts their will over the script. Yeah, it is. It's an assertion of will because you conjure up a concept in your mind, a world that didn't exist beforehand. That world can include yellows and blues. That world can include everyone in the whole film has an afro. Everyone in the whole film wears whatever. You're creating cinematic rules. And then now, once you've created said cinematic rules and you've got them on paper, you then now take this, and each head of department now brings their magic into that vision that you've now solidified, and then they feed their soul into that, and you just make sure that they are doing the right way. Is the camera guy shooting on a lower angle to give a hero type demeanor to the character at this point in the film, because she has now overcome what she had not overcome in the beginning. And everyone is subtextually diving into the truths of this film, but who is there to protect the vision? The director. Because now if everyone decides that they're going to tell their own story, at that point, you have a hot mess. You'll have this hot mess. So the director is there to take responsibility of the vision and to guide it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for explaining, because now I understand what the role of a director is. My last question to you is, what work are you most proud of?
What work am I most proud of? I'm most proud of Epasin Lama Putango. I am most proud of it. I am most proud of it, you know. And I think hindsight gives me that 2020 vision, but I've not yet made the films that you know, time, my heart and my heart sees time fondly. My mind sees time very linearly, and fondly is like in a non-linear way. So quite often I would love to answer this question after having shot that work that says, that one right there, and Epasin Lama Putango is that work. But I think there's something else. And in my mind is very linear. Yeah. Epasin Lama Putango, boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm. Ndumiso, this has been so wonderful, and I appreciate you for coming onto our show. Where can listeners follow your journey and see what you're doing? Please share all of your social media information and website.
Okay. I am on Instagram, Ndumiso Sibanda on Instagram. You'll go to my page, you'll see it's me. I recently did a bit of an Instagram sanitizer. So the stuff I've got right now is actually from the trip. So it doesn't take too far. You'll just be in my 2015 trip as you're going down in that journey. My website, I always use my name, ndumisosibanda.com. I'm Ndumiso Sibanda on Instagram. I am not on Facebook anymore. I'm not on Facebook anymore. And you can catch my stuff on Vimeo, Ndumiso Sibanda. And just watch the space. I'm really enjoying who I am because I've taken the time to work the pre-production. So when everything starts to go into production, it'll be a nice time. Right now we are quiet. We are learning to stitch, and we are stitching.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So we're going to cut that. We're going to cut this part, but we will share this on YouTube starting December 1st. And it will be uploaded to our podcast world. I think maybe around December. I'm not sure, because we've had several people we've interviewed before, but I will be sure to share all of the information with you so you can listen.
I can't wait. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great, lovely evening. I'm sure it's probably 6 or 7 now.
Yeah, it's 7. I'm about to just go chill and relax.
Wonderful. Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.